It is my extreme pleasure to introduce Arthur Meyer.
As I think most of you know, I'm not a speaker. So I think the best thing for me to do would be just step away from the microphone and begin having you teach us what FWC meant to you. However, it's required that I say something. First of all, 3 or 4 years ago, I ran across a quote by Meister Eckhart, the 12th century German theologian and mystic, who said in one of his talks, if you can say only one prayer, I'm not a religious person, I don't say many big prayers. If you can say only one prayer, and that prayer is thank you, that will suffice. Well, believe me, for all the time been between there when I heard that and now, I've been saying a lot of thank yous. And many of them, when I just walk out in the morning and the birds are singing and the trees are blowing around, I say thank you for being on this wonderful globe. Second thank you is, and one thing I couldn't even believe would happen, to be here 50 years after the start of Friends World Institute on Long Island. And I'm so thankful for that, and so thankful to be here with all you. It's great. There's a story of a young priest who was just finishing his divinity school, and he was meant to give a talk on a Sunday morning. So he went to the bishop, and he asked the bishop, I'm scared, I don't want to talk. First of all, what should I talk about? And the bishop said, well, my son, 2 things you should talk about, just 2 things. 1, talk about God, and 2, talk about 5 minutes. However, I've been asked to talk for 15, and I'm not going to talk about God. Although I am going to talk about Morris Mitchell, and some people think it's close. Just a brief bio of Morris. He was born in 1895. Grew up in an educational family, as David said. His father was the chancellor of the University of North Carolina. His brother brought us Mitchell to become a professor. So he grew up in that kind of atmosphere. And he entered the First World War, as David said, as a machine gun person. He actually was attacked by the Germans by mustard gas, was overcome for that, luckily survived it, and went on to, I think, become a pacifist and a person who believed in nonviolence. So those are 2 qualities that Morris had that stood for him for the rest of his life. One of his first jobs was to become head of a small rural school, elderly school, in the South. And he quickly became convinced that schools were always too isolated from the community around them, that they were a little ivory tower there and just doing what they had always done without thought of where they were living and what was needed and where they were living and what the possibilities were. So he found that hunger was a major problem with the community of the Ellerby School. So he quickly got some extra money somehow, I don't know, he's a great talker and a great persuasive person who can get anything, and got enough money to start one of the first hot lunch programs in the United States. He then went on to go to Columbia University to be with John Dewey for a while. Morris already had his degree, but he wanted to go there and study under John Dewey. So he came back from there and was so convinced that experiential education, not being talked at, which I'm doing now, but experiential, experiencing things, and not just experiencing them, but examining that experience. That's where the journals came in, the idea of examined experience. That you can wander around the world, and we used to have a thing of wandering scholars at Friends World Institute. And but if you're just wandering and having experience, that doesn't lead to much. It has to be examined experience, written about, taken in. What does this mean to you? How does it work? So this became one of the prime concepts of Morris's idea. Whoops.
Could you speak closer to the microphone?
Thank you. Morris also felt that what H.G. Wells, the historian, once said was so true. He said, civilization is in a race between education and catastrophe. And this was said long, long time ago. I guess there was catastrophe then. If he were alive today, he certainly would know that, yes, we are very close to catastrophic things with things like climate change. So because of that, he felt that any kind of world education must not just be examined experience and experiential, but ought to be in a context of searching out those problems that are facing us around this globe and look for those interesting and meaningful kinds of experiments or programs that are going on that might be a way through, might find a way for us to find a way to survive. So that was the second idea. Third idea, community, experiential education, and focus on the world and the problems around it. And no matter what you're studying, whether it be theater or dance or music or art or social studies or community organizing, always do it in a context of looking for problems in the community where you are and ways through, new ideas. Morris was an idealist and visionary. Some people said he was such an idealist and visionary that he had his feet planted firmly in the clouds. But he was a very persuasive person. I can see why the committee on the Friends World College that was started would accept his idea. So when Morris came to that committee to try to understand what they're trying to do and to say what he thought, he came out with this grand scheme which would include experience, examined experience journals based on Quaker idea of journals, and world. And so he laid out this wonderful idea of we'll take students from the first center we opened, which is going to be here on Long Island. We luckily had found Mitchell Gardens at that point, just months before we were to open. We didn't have a campus yet. I had come up to Long Island to meet George Nicklin, Mary Cushing Niles, some other weighty Quakers who were on this committee. I guess so they could look me over and see whether I'd be worthwhile for it, but also just to explain what they were trying to do. And Morris laid out this idea of starting in one center, enrolling students, and have an airplane go and take them to the next center, nice ride, and continue on around the world as the students went from one center to the next. His original idea was 7 centers around the world. The reason for 7 was that the last semester, and it was all semester experiences, the last semester would be to come back to your home region and carry out your senior studies and get your graduation there. It was a great idea, and I think it excited some students, but basically over the years it wore down some students. It was too much to have 7 different cultural experiences with very little break in between. I don't think we even had vacations, as I remember it. We traveled by microbus. I think people remember those microbuses. When we went from North America, after the first semester, where we'd had study trips with microbuses, down south, through the south, studying racial problems, studying hunger problems, studying coal mining and the coal mine, mountaintop removal. We traveled with tents on our microbuses, and we stayed in tents in public parks and things like that, swimming in the rivers that were around us, waking up in the morning and going to ice cold river, having swim. So it was an exciting idea, and we went to Mexico that way, all the way down, studying, and using it in Mexico as our transportation. So I guess the second thing I'm thankful for is that that idea had such power in it that it was able to overcome the differences, and that we're here 50 years later. I'm very thankful for that. And thank you for being here and being part of Friends World. I would stop and just say to people in those first couple of classes, what did you learn? What was part of that first Friends World College experience? I knew when I stood up here to talk that I would be interrupted if necessary by someone saying, "No, Arthur, that's not the way it worked." Right? Ben? Thank you, Ben. Thank you. But it's been fun. It's been quite a journey. I've loved every minute of it, even though there were some that were very tiring. But luckily I'm still here, and it's really great to be with all you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, there's a story to that, too, as you know.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you so much.